Hi, I'm Mark. Today, my presentation is going to be on the mark of the beast. Pretty interesting topic. A lot of people, including myself, have spent a lot of time trying to understand it, and I think I have something I can share with you now. And I'm going to take this out of King James and also the New King James Bible, as well as looking at Daniel chapter 2 and 7, and uh, Revelation chapter 13 and 17. And these are both end-time books. If you look at Daniel 12 verse 4 and 9, it'll show you it. It says that it is specifically for the end days. And so where I want to start with, there's a lot here. So I'm going to read a couple of verses out of chapter 13 of Revelation, and then we'll go from there. So this is John's vision, as well as in Daniel, it'll be his vision of what he sees and what God has shown them in the vision. So this is Revelation 13, verse 1. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. So the dragon is Satan, the devil, and the beast. You're going to find that these animals here are symbols. They're symbols that God has used to represent different empires or different kingdoms. And we'll find that the head, that we're going to read about the head, these are governments, and horns are kingdoms, and of course they have a king associated with them. So let's see where this beast came from before we can go any further. So let's go to Daniel and look at chapter 7. Now, we'll start with verse 3. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. First one here. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings, and I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. This is the Chaldean Empire that existed from 625 to 538 BC. It was King Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, and he eventually lost his kingdom to the Persian Empire, and that existed from 558 to 330 BC. And here's what it says. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear, it was raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth, and they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. And so as we move on, the Persian Empire is taken over by the Greco-Macedonian Empire, the one out of Greece, and controlled by Alexander the Great, who also had a very powerful, great army. And he was in power in early 300s BC, and here's what it says for him. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Now the 4 heads represent 4 governments. Alexander died early 30s, and his kingdom, or his domain that he had conquered, it was given over to his 4 generals. They all took a section of that for themselves, and their existence would be the 4 heads. In other words, 4 heads represent each one of those 4 generals. That's where those governments come from. And they were taken over by the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire at this time existed from 31 BC to 476 AD. And this is verse 7. And this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay, this is unlike any other animal, and you notice that There's 7 heads here. These are the same 7 heads as the beast in Revelation 13. So we're talking about the same beast. Revelation 13, what John saw, simply is an embodiment of the previous 3 beasts. And so now we've combined all these 4 beasts into the one Roman Empire, which is great and mighty. Continuing to read in Revelation 13, verse 3, and I saw one of his heads as it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, who is able to make war with him. And so this wound that mentioned here, this wound occurred as a result of, there were 3 foreign barbarian armies that had invaded Rome between the years of AD 429, and they were in there up until the time of Justinian, an emperor, which was AD 554. He ran them out of town. But these 3 foreign barbarians are called the Vandals, Heruli, and Ostrogoths, and they did a lot of damage to Rome. Really sacked it well, but they all 3 failed to really establish themselves and take over there. And of course, Justinian came in at the behest of the Pope, and he ran them out of town, and they were never heard from again. Now, understand that this beast is a mighty political power, military power, and economic power. They're mighty, they're powerful, really very powerful. A gentleman named Herbert Armstrong, who had founded the Worldwide Church of God, who's now deceased, but he wrote, this is what he wrote. And the 4th kingdom, which developing from Rome spread out and gradually absorbed one after another of these 4 divisions, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, was the Roman Empire. It had absorbed all the others, occupied all their territory, was greater and stronger than all. It included all the royal splendor of ancient Babylon, thus having the head, the strongest part of the lion. It had all the massiveness and numerically powerful army of the Persian Empire, symbolized by the legs, the most powerful part of the bear. It was the greatest war-making machine the world had ever seen, and it also possessed the swiftness, the cunning, and the cruelty of Alexander's army, symbolized by the leopard. And thus this 4th beast was unlike any wild beast of the earth. It was stronger, greater, and more terrible than any other. And so this is the Roman Empire, which once combined. Well, there's going to be a second beast I'm going to refer to here in a moment, but once they combine, they become really unbeatable. So it says here that let's see. We said that he was able to make war with no one was able to make war with him, the beast. He had power and authority over every tribe, tongue, and nation on the face of the earth. That shows you how he can control the earth, how powerful he is. He was, and he will continue to be in the years to come. And all who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of life, slain from the foundation of the world, of the Lamb, slain from the foundation. So what we have here is a powerful empire. Now, continuing in Revelation 13, verse 11, it says, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And keep in mind, this is a second beast. This is the great false church that we're speaking of here now. He exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and he causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he does miracles. He makes an image unto the beast. He has the power to give life unto the image of the beast. But the key thing here is that, verse 16, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their foreheads. And so this is the great false church. It's not the mark of the church. It's the mark of the Roman Empire. Now, when Justinian arrived on the scene, we began 7 resurrections of this combined Roman Empire and Roman Church. The Holy Roman Empire is what it became known as, and still is known as that now. And they there will be 7 resurrections. The horns, the 7 remaining horns will refer to these 7 emperors, their kingdoms, and the heads would be the government of the Holy Rome of the Catholic Church. Essentially, is what we're talking about here. Those 7 heads. This you'll find that these heads, they rise up, and then they're strong for a period of time, and then they fall back, and then they go up, bump along in the bottom, and then they rise up again with a new emperor, and they fall back and they rise up again. So they go through the 7 times. Now, right now we're in the 6th time period of the 6th head, and we'll talk about that, and I'll give you some more detail on that. Now, taking or rejecting the mark is all about obedience. If you accept the mark of this beast, you are being disobedient to God, and He will punish you. If you refuse the mark, and you will die as a result of that, then you're obedient to God, and He will reward you. So it's important to understand this and to prepare today. And as the years go on, you need to be preparing, and your family needs to understand these things, because it's vital to your relationship, with God when He returns. Now, that great false church, out again in verses 11 through 18, we find that the 2 horns are the church government and a state or civil government. And we know that the Vatican is a state, and they have relationships with governments all around the world. And we know the dragon is the devil. It's a great, powerful church. They have much deception over the earth. They cause the rich and poor to receive the mark, and no man can buy or sell without the mark. So this is what's covered in those verses. Now, the mark of the beast is not anything new. It's been around the mark's been around for 1,500 years. In Constantine, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, he was the first person to originate Sunday worship. The Jews had always worshipped God and kept the Sabbath on Saturday, and now Constantine did not want anybody Judaizing, and as the Jews did, and so he was just saying that no more of that. It's now your day of rest is on Sunday. There was a lot of resistance to that, but a lot of people were killed, as we'll see here in a few minutes. So this is the first Sunday law. This is they're saying the earliest recognition of the observation of Sunday as a legal duty is a constitution of Constantine in 321 A.D., enacting that all courts of justice, inhabitants of towns, and the workshops were to be at rest on Sunday. Now, again, Mr. Herbert Armstrong is what he said about why saints were martyred. It was for obeying God's 4th commandment, keeping the Sabbath, that millions were put to death. The local council of Laodicea, about AD 363, passed this decree, quote, Christians must not Judaize by resting on the Sabbath, but must work on that day, resting rather than Sunday. But if any be found to be Judaizing, let them be declared an anathema from Christ, or a heretic. Okay, so moving on, we also have a reprint of a booklet called The Roman Catholic and Protestant Confessions About Sunday. These are quotes from 25 clergymen who, from denominations including the Methodist, Baptist, Catholic, Anglican, Congregational, and Disciples of Christ. And they all say that, whether they believe it or not, they all said publicly that Sunday is not to be found in the Bible, but Saturday, it's a biblical day of worship, and it's the Sabbath day. And so it's interesting that they, whether or not they practice this, that's what the 25 of these individuals have said. And then a third item here I have is this is a quote from a book called National Sunday Law by Jane Markison. This is regarding a gentleman named Catholic Cardinal Gibbons. I've seen this quote many times, and it's well known. In a book he wrote, Faith of Our Fathers, page 111, he quotes. He says, "You may read the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, and you will not find a single line authorizing the sanctification of Sunday. The Scriptures enforce the religious observance of Saturday, a day which we never sanctify." He lived from 1877. I'm sorry, I think he was in Cardinal until 1921. And a quote here, Matthew 15:9, that says, "But in vain," this is Jesus speaking, "they do worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men." Okay, commandments of men certainly is correct here, because Constantine was a man, and he's the one that started the Sunday worship. It was not from the Bible, and it still is not from the Bible. Now, prior enforcement of the mark. The mark's been around 1,500 years, as I mentioned a moment ago. And if we look at Martin Luther in about the year 1517 A.D., he confronted the Catholic Church. He told them that he was upset with what they're teaching, with their statutes and their laws, and the things that they were doing were all unbiblical. And so what happened was a lot of people began leaving the Catholic Church, and at the same time, or thereabouts, in Spain, there was a persecution going on. It was referred to as an Inquisition, and they were killing Muslims and Jews and I believe others that resisted, worshiping Catholic doctrines, and so this Inquisition was spreading throughout Europe. And so what happened was that the Catholic Church, basically, they created their own Reformation to fight back against what Martin Luther had done, and the fact that a lot of people had left and weren't coming back. And so what it says here is that the Reformation was the Vatican's response, or this Reformation, this Catholic Counter-Reformation, was a response to the Protestant Reformation. This response was brutal, using torture, imprisonment to bring wayward Catholics back into the fold. And also, in 1871, a fellow named John Dowling, he wrote The History of Romanism, and there's a quote here: "From the birth of popery, it is estimated by careful and credible historians that more than 50 millions of the human family have been slaughtered for the crime of heresy by popish persecutors." And Haley's Bible Handbook corroborates this figure. Historians, this is another quote, estimate that in the Middle Ages, early Reformation era, more than 50 million martyrs perished. So we have it from two sources here, and I've been where I've read this in other places many times over the last many years about that great false church in Europe and what they had done to convert people to their, to what they believed and were preaching. So I mentioned the 7 resurrections of this Holy Roman Empire. The first one was, of course, Justinian in A.D. 554. Then Charlemagne followed him in 800. Otto the Great in 962. Napoleon, or rather Habsburg dynasty in 1520. Napoleon in the early 1800s, he was crushed at Waterloo, and that was the end of his reign. And as a result, the Catholic Church also went into decline, like they had been doing. And then that was 1814, and then that period of time, things bumped along, kind of there at the bottom, and then it started in the mid 1800s, started going up to the point about 1870, where we started moving into that World War I and World War II period, and there was an alliance between Hitler and Mussolini, and they were like the emperors, at that time. And so then they went, and then the whole organization, the Roman Empire as well as the church, went into decline again, and so into like a valley. And this was this is the last valley that we're going to be in, right? And it's occurring now, and we're waiting for the return of the Roman Empire. And we've completed 6 horns and 6 heads, and now we're waiting for the 7th horn and for the 7th head. And then Jesus will come. He will return and stop it all. He will bring everything like that to an end. There will be peace after that. Now, and let's see, 20. Okay, I'm doing okay on time. Looks like. Okay, I want to mention a reason this business of obedience to God is really, really important. And this isn't anything new. This goes back to actually 722 BC. Prior to that time, back in 1100 BC, Israel and Judah, when they were all Israel, because remember, Jacob's name was, God changed his name to Israel, and he had 12 sons, and they all became part of Israel. So the nation of Israel at that time, they split up. 10 of those brothers, or 10 of those tribes, went up north to Samaria. That was their capital, and then the 2 remained, Judah, and I think Benjamin, I think, remained in the area of Jerusalem. Now, what happened was that they, both of them, in their own separate locations, they were breaking God's commandments. They and we're doing the same thing today. And they went into captivity, so they had idol worship, which we don't worship their idols like they had, statues and all, but we worship, our job, our car, our hobbies, our spouses, our children, sports. We have our own personal, idols that we, worship. Second one is serving Baal or Moloch, sacrificing their children, to these gods, these little gods that they had created. We have abortion, and there's nothing more I could add to that hasn't already been said. We've hardened our necks hardened our hearts towards God. They did this, in ancient Israel, in ancient Judah. We do the same thing today. We've turned away from God in a major, major way, and He's not going to take that laying down. He's going to punish us for that. But the big one is the Sabbath. We've, for 1,500 years, remember, since Constantine, we have been breaking the Sabbath, and Sunday is not the Sabbath day, but probably 90%, 95% of the world, those professing Christians that keep Sunday, and so God will all going to be punished, other than those who managed to escape this, or this wrath that's coming. But the plague, there'll be 7 last plagues spoken of in Revelation 15 and 16. 7 last plagues that will be applied to those who take the mark. Anyway, Israel was attacked by the Assyrians in 722 BC. The Assyrians are now modern day Germany, and so they will be attacking us again. If you read the Bible, that's what God says. And 130 years later, the Jews, or Judah, was attacked by the Babylonians, and they were taken into captivity for committing the same, breaking the same commandments as the Israelites were doing. Okay, you also might take a look at Leviticus 26 and 28. There's blessings and curses in there. You should really read the curses to see what's coming, what is going to happen to so many people. You really should read those. Now, I want to talk about the Sabbath. 4th commandment is Exodus 20, verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day, keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor, and then do all thy work. But on the 7th day is the Sabbath day of the Lord thy God. Okay, you're all familiar with the Saturday Sabbath, so I'm not going to, go through all the verses here, but it's pretty clear what God wants from us. I do want to look at Mark 2:27. This is Jesus speaking, and he said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Therefore the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. And Luke 4:16 says that he, referring to Jesus, he came to Nazareth where he had been brought up, and as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day, stood up to read. So he was in the he was in the synagogue on the Sabbath, and it would have been a Saturday. And also, when Jesus had I want to read James. This is a good quote. James 2, verse 10 and 11. This is actually what this is about. James tells us that there's 10 commandments, and if we break one of those commandments, that it's the same as breaking all 10 commandments. Okay, so if you break the Sabbath commandment, then you've essentially broken all of them. And that's according to James 2, 10, 11. So you might want to read those two verses. And also in Ezekiel 39:23, it says, the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquity, because they trespassed against me. Therefore I hid my face from them. I gave them into the hand of their enemies, so they fell all by the sword. And then it goes on to say that their uncleanliness, and according to their uncleanness and according to their transgressions, have I done unto them, and I hid my face from them. Now, transgressions refers to breaking, it's an inequity or breaking God's law. My concordance says that this transgressions is to despise God's law, to be rebellious against them, or to be also willful deviation from godly living. So this is these are other meanings of the word transgressions, or to be a transgressor. And so what I have here, I have a few minutes left here. I want to move on. I don't want to beat you over the head about the Sabbath. I'm just trying to point out what, some of those things that God is saying in His Word, about that subject. Here's some verses regarding those who have the victory over the beast. This is Revelation 15:2. And I saw, as it were, a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them, sea of glass, that's another symbol, that they had gotten the victory over the beast, over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name. And so here's another, this is Revelation 14:12 and 13. It says, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. And it goes on in Revelation 13, and I heard a voice from heaven saying unto me, write, blessed are the dead which die in the Lord from henceforth. Anyway, so to die, it's a blessed way to die. If you die for God, don't die for God by choosing to do so. Don't die because Satan is going to make you die for him. Die because you choose to die for the Lord, and He will honor you in that. Revelation 20, verse 4 says, I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Okay, at his return, He resurrected those people, and they reigned with Him for 1,000 years. And that's just the beginning, that 1,000 years. And here's Revelation 12:17. And the dragon was wroth, or was angry with the woman. Woman is another symbol for the church. It can be God's church. It can be a great false church. In this case, it's God's church. And he was angry with the woman, or with the church, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. And so there are just some examples of, here's one other, of people who have died for the Lord. When He opened the fifth seal, this is Revelation 6, verse 9 through 11. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw underneath the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the witness of him. They cried out with a loud voice, O sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long before thou wilt judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell upon the earth? Then they were each given a white robe and told to rest a little longer until the number of their fellow servants and their brethren should be complete, who were to be killed as they themselves had been. So we're the ones that need to complete this business of being killed, and they're, according to the verse, those who have already been killed are waiting for that to happen. Now, regarding, let's see, I'm down to the last couple minutes here. Let me just read. This is someone who received the mark. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day or night, who worship the beast and his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. That sounds bad. We're at the end. I'm going to lose my time here probably within a minute. Let's see. It says here, this is Matthew 10, verse 22, And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that endureth to the end shall be saved. And Jesus says that in many places, that if you endure to the end, and you're patient, and you wait for him, that when he returns, he will have his reward with him. And he is glad to share that reward with all those who wait, and in the worst case, to die. We're going to have to. Actually, otherwise, there's so much in there that's in the Bible being said about this. So I think I'm all done here. Just about any second now. It looks like I'm going to lose my time. So I hope this has helped you. It's not probably a lot. It's nothing that you want to hear, but it's truth. This is the truth. This is what God is saying. And so this is what the mark is